In today's video, me and some of my friends are going to be surviving 100 days in a 100 by 100 Origin SMP world. And just quickly, I want to give a quick shout out to the YouTuber Jaren for giving me this idea to do the 100 by 100 world border. And lastly, I just want to say thank you guys so much for all of the support on the last video. You guys helped me hit 1,000 subscribers so quickly, and I can't thank you guys enough. But anyways guys, if you guys don't already know what the Origin mod is, basically when we first all start out, we're all going to get an option to pick out an Origin. And these Origins have pros, they also have a couple cons as well, but just sort of spices up the world a little bit more. And without further ado, let's jump right into 100 days in the 100 by 100 border Origin SMP. On day 1, we all jumped into the server and picked out our Origins. For me, I picked the Elytrian. My friend Fusey picked out the Inchling. And then my mate Angry, he picked out the Shulk. After messing about with my new Origin, I flew around with my Elytra a little bit and then got straight to work mining as much wood as I could. I then made myself up some basic tools and murdered a bunch of fish. After cooking the fish, the final member of the SMP finally joined. Salem, the Enderian. Since I could fly, I decided I wanted to set my base on the highest hill possible. After placing a few things for my small little base, I then decided to go caving. And we didn't have the funnest experience. I died quite a few times. After finally finding 2 pieces of iron, which took so long. On days 5 to 8, I then went mining a bit deeper and found a mine shaft, so I collected up as much loot as possible. There was then a bug with some of the minecarts where they would duplicate, and there would be 2 of them inside of each other, so I managed to get double the loot. I wasn't complaining. After finally making my way back up to the surface, I then planted some pumpkin seeds and some melon seeds. At the end of day 8, we realised that the Enderian, he couldn't see any of us when we had pumpkins on our heads. So we decided to put a bunch of pumpkins on and went round and trolled him for a little bit. Which resulted in him dying. And while we're on the subject, at the start of day 9 I accidentally murdered Angry. I flew into him and punched him and it one-hit him. I then found a little bit of water, so I swam down and I found an axolotl. Then at the start of day 10, I channeled my inner dream and I made myself a quick nether portal with just a water bucket and some buckets of lava. And then at the end of day 10, I went into the Nether, just to have a little explore and see what was around. I didn't really do much though. After jumping out of the Nether, I then made a massive giant cobblestone tower just for me to perch on so that I could fly around really easily. At the start of day 11 and 12, I made up some beehives because I noticed there were a lot of bees around and I wanted to make a massive bee area. So through days 13 to 15, I hollowed out a big tree and I made it into a makeshift bee area, just for the time being. Near the end of day 15, a group of pillagers spawned, so I got them in boats and trapped them, as I'd want to do a raid later on in 100 days. And then at the end of day 15, I bred up all of my bees. At the start of day 16, I started farming some fish because I needed food, and I ended up drowning because I did not realise how low oxygen I had. So instead of murdering fish, I went and harvested the farm. For the rest of the days through 16 to 18, I chopped down a bunch of trees and then bred my bees again. At the start of days 19 to 23, we saw some skeletons doing some weird stuff, so we put an end to that pretty quickly. Through the rest of the days up to 23, I helped Angry make a chicken farm so that we could have a bit of automated food. And then for the next few days, I went mining and literally found nothing. It was so difficult to mine in this 100 by 100 world. Finally though, on day 24, I found a really cool looking amethyst geode, which is really cool and I wanted to use this in the future. And then on my way out, I found some diamonds, the first diamonds on the server. Through days 25 to 30, I started hollowing out the underneath of my mountain as I wanted to make a cow farm and a sheep farm. So I hollowed it out, got my sheep and my cows, and this is the end result. Not too bad. Through days 31 to 33, I kept on breeding up the cows and the sheep and managed to get a couple different colours. So I decided I wanted to make a small little automated sheep farm, which, spoiler, I never finished. Through days 34 to 35, I headed back to the Nether so that I could get myself some quartz. And since it was Halloween, I saw a Halloween pigman, so I grabbed him in a boat and brought him back to the overworld. And for the rest of day 35, I headed back to the Nether and I just mined up a bunch of quartz. Through days 36 to 38, I got a little bit bored waiting for grass to grow in my farm, so I decided to make a mob spawner. And since mob spawns were very limited on the 100 by 100 world, it worked really well. On day 40, I flattened out the top of my mountain as I was getting ready to start my new project. So through days 41 to 43, I started beginning my floating island project. On day 44, Salem was AFKing the mob grinder, and he managed to get a zombie villager to spawn. So we got it in a boat, ready to be cured later on. And then, to my surprise, once we let the rest of the mobs back down, another zombie villager spawned. So we got him in a boat as well, and got ready to cure them. Through days 45 to 50, I completely finished my floating island, and I thought it looked pretty good. Through days 51 to 57, we prepared to cure the villagers, so we headed to the Nether to get some blaze rods. Once we returned from the Nether, we made up a brewing stand, made up some weakness potions, got some golden apples, and got ready to cure the villagers. And finally, once they were both cured, I made a little area under my island, and I put them both in there with some beds so that they could breed and make a small little villager family. And on the evening of 57, I moved all my bees onto the top of my island. Through days 58 to 59, I started helping Angry with making a villager farm for iron golems so we could get a lot of iron. Once we'd finished, all that was left to do was drop 3 villagers into the bed area. So we grabbed them from my island, led them across to the area, and then we dropped them in. And then at the end of day 59, me and Fuse were having a bit of a bow competition and I absolutely clapped him. On day 60, disaster struck. I was flying around and I noticed a lot of sheep that were just roaming around the area, so I went and checked on my sheep farm. And to my despair, an Enderman had got in and placed blocks so that they could all escape, and everything was just crammed into my cow area. So I did what anyone would naturally do. I grabbed a bucket of lava and I burnt them all. But then on the bright side of day 60, I came down and I saw Angry had made a massive villager farm. So we had infinite food and a really easy way to trade food for emeralds. On day 61, Salem had bred a couple chickens, so me and Angry decided to do some chicken genocide. Through days 62 to 65, I just kept on trading with the villagers, and it was pretty boring, so I'll just show you the results on how much I did. On day 66, I stole a bunch of carrots from Angry's farm, so that I could get a bunch of emeralds from my farmers. And then at the end of day 66, a wandering trader spawned, and he had some tropical fish and some kelp. On day 67, I'd finally managed to complete my chainmail set of armour. On day 68, I helped Angry finish up his farm by donating another 2 of my villagers into the farms. On day 69, I began with farming up a bunch of pumpkins. And then when I finished, I noticed a wandering trader. So I headed over, and to my surprise, he finally had some sugarcane. So I headed over and I planted it immediately. Through days 70 to 72, I started collecting a bunch of resources for a certain project that I was going to be doing nearer to the end of my 100 days. Through days 73 to 74, I got myself a villager that was a librarian, and it gave me a Silk Touch book. And through the rest of the days, I then went over to Angry's farm, and he'd done more to it. So we finally had a pumpkin farm in there, and an easy way to trade with all of the villagers. Nearing the end of day 74, I then went back to my villagers and bought myself a Silk Touch book. And for the rest of the day I started collecting up some dirt for a future project. So, through days 75 to 79, I began on building my giant villager island. By the end of day 79, I'd managed to finish the bottom half of it, but I needed to replace it all with dirt and stone, so I finished up there. Days 80 to 85 were pretty funny, so me and Angry decided we wanted to get onto the nether roof. So we got up there, and Angry tried to do the trick to break bedrock, and he ended up killing himself quite a few times. Until eventually, he managed to break it. And we wanted to make a pigman gold farm as quick as possible, so for the next couple of days, we just mined up as many magma blocks as possible. Through days 86 to 87, I got myself some librarians, where I managed to get protection 4 and efficiency 5. Through days 88 to 89, I went to check on Angry's villager farm, and it turned out that they all turned into zombies, so I decided that I'd cure them. And by doing that, I managed to get myself some discounted prices on all of the vegetables, so easier emeralds for me. Once I headed back up to my base though, I realised that my 2 villagers with prot 4 and efficiency 5 had been reset because I didn't trade with them. So I'd have to spend the rest of the next couple of days fixing those and hopefully trying to get the same books back. So I then got mending, protection 4 again, and efficiency 4. Through days 90 to 93, I realised I'd need a lot of stone for my next project on my giant island. So I spent the next few days just mining up as much stone as possible. By the end of day 93, Angry had finished the pigman farm, and it worked amazingly. On day 94, I decided to continue on my cloud project, so I added my new nether portal. And on day 95, I headed down into the mines and I helped Angry with his new slime farm. On day 96, I decided to start prepping for the raid. So I managed to get myself a bunch of emeralds from the farming villagers. I then bought up 2 protection 4 books to put on my helmet and my boots. Then my armor was looking ready to go. And finally, on day 97 through to day 98, we started the raid. Finally, at the end of day 98, we completed the raid, and between us we had 4 totems of Undying. On day 99, it's coming up to Christmas, so we decided we wanted to make a Christmas tree. And on day 100, I just rested. I look back on everything I'd done, from floating islands, to making giant nether portal swords, to mob farms, to bees, to making villager farms, making houses, even an iron golem farm, and finally, a Christmas tree. And it was all such an amazing journey. I just want to give a quick shout out to all the guys that helped me on this journey. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next one.